Imagine this. You've just finished a grueling 16-hour shift. It's midnight, you're exhausted, and all you want is to collapse into your own bed. You pull into your driveway, walk up to your front door, put your key in the lock, and it doesn't turn. You try again. Nothing? You look closer and realize the entire lock has been changed. Confused and a little panicked, you start looking for a notice. Anything that could explain this? Taped to your door is a single piece of paper. It's from your homeowners association, the Whispering Pines HOA, informing you that due to a violation, your access to the property has been restricted. The violation: your garden gnome was apparently 2 inches too tall. Now, I'm an engineer. We solve problems. Okay. And at that moment, standing locked out of my own house in the dead of night, I had a very big problem to solve. My first thought wasn't anger. It was a cold, calculated sense of purpose. The HOA, and specifically its president, a woman we'll call Susan, had declared war. And if it was war she wanted, it was war she was going to get. I spent that night at a cheap motel, but I wasn't sleeping. I was drafting plans, sketching blueprints, and diving deep into the labyrinthine bylaws of the HOA. Every rule, every clause, every tiny loophole became my new obsession. The next morning, I confronted Susan. She was watering her perfectly manicured, regulation-approved petunias. She just smiled smugly and said the rules were the rules. She explained that until I paid a hefty fine and removed the offending gnome, my home was effectively no longer mine. That's when my plan truly began to crystallize. You see, the HOA bylaws were incredibly specific about things like lawn height, fence color, and mailbox design. But as I read through them with an engineer's eye for detail, I found a fascinating omission. There was absolutely nothing in the rules about the type of front door you could have, not a single word about material, thickness, or weight. And that, my friends, was the loophole I was going to drive a tank through. Or, in this case, something even better. My battle strategy was twofold. First, the legal side. I sent a certified letter to the HOA board. Quoting the state property laws, they had just broken by performing what's called a self-help eviction, which is highly illegal. I informed them that if I didn't have a new key in my hand within 24 hours, my lawyer would be in touch. The panic in Susan's voice when she called me a few hours later was music to my ears. I got my key back that afternoon, but that was just round 1. Round 2 was where the real fun began. I wasn't just going to win. I was going to make a statement. A big, heavy, immovable statement. I started making some calls, not to contractors, but to specialists. Companies that deal in high-level security, banks, government facilities. You get the idea. I found what I was looking for at a salvage company that specialized in decommissioning old bank vaults. There it was. A magnificent 2-tone solid steel bank vault door, complete with a multi-lock mechanism, and a wheel that looked like it belonged on a submarine. It was perfect. The salvage guys thought I was crazy, but a job is a job. I purchased it on the spot. The next phase was preparation. I spent the weekend reinforcing the entire front entrance of my house. I added steel beams to the frame, poured a new concrete foundation for the doorway, and basically turned my foyer into a fortress. My neighbors were curious, peering over their fences as I worked, but no one suspected what was coming. They probably just thought I was doing some heavy-duty renovations. Susan would drive by slowly in her golf cart, a suspicious frown on her face, but since I wasn't breaking any rules, there was nothing she could do. The gnome, by the way, was now sitting proudly on my reinforced porch, a tiny guardian watching over the preparations for his new, much larger counterpart. Then came the big day. Delivery day. A massive flatbed truck rumbled into our quiet suburban cul-de-sac, followed by a crane that looked big enough to lift a house. Neighbors started coming out of their homes, their morning coffee forgotten. Jaws literally dropped. The crane operators, true professionals. carefully lifted the 2-ton steel beast from the truck. It swung through the air, a metallic monster eclipsing the morning sun, before being guided with millimeter precision into the space where my friendly wooden front door used to be. The installation took hours. Bolts the size of my arm were drilled deep into the new steel frame. The sound of metal on metal echoed through the neighborhood. It was the sound of victory. By the time it was done, my house looked different. It was a normal suburban house with a ridiculously oversized, impenetrable bank vault for a front door. It was glorious. The best part? It was 100% compliant with every single HOA by law. There was no rule against it. Of course, it didn't take long for Susan to show up. She stormed up my driveway, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. She started pounding on the 2-inch thick steel. It made a dull, unsatisfying thud. She screamed, "What is this monstrosity? You have to open this door. I need to do an inspection." I calmly walked over to the small, bulletproof porthole window I'd had installed in the center of the door and spoke through the integrated intercom system. "According to Bylaw 7.4, Susan," I said, my voice calm and clear, "inspections require 48 hours written notice delivered to the homeowner. You can slide it through the mail slot if you'd like." She stood there, sputtering, absolutely speechless. She had no power here. Her petty rules and threats were useless against a solid wall of engineering and legal precision. She had tried to lock me out of my home over a garden gnome. And in response, I had made it so no one could ever force their way into my home again, least of all her. She eventually retreated, defeated, to the glares and muffled laughter of the entire neighborhood who had gathered to watch the show. From that day on, I never had another problem with the HOA. My home became a local legend, the house with the vault door. I had my privacy, my peace, and my slightly tootly garden gnome, who now stands guard in front of a door worthy of his stature. The lesson here is simple. Don't start a fight with an engineer. We might seem quiet, but we solve problems. And when we're pushed, our solutions tend to be permanent, over-engineered, and incredibly satisfying. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this story of suburban revenge, be sure to like, subscribe to Karen Conflict, and maybe check your own HOA bylaws. You never know what loopholes you might find. See you next time.